That's fantastic. I'm very excited about that. Anything that continues this story. When we got to do the small little half-hour movie, that was fantastic. Anytime to kind of return to the skins of these characters is quite frankly an honor. So,
amazing.
How about you guys?
This is just, it's been such a trip. Like the last 10 years or even 8 years have just been this, like, been the universe giving us these opportunities to experience things that we didn't realize were going to be so important. Because, and that doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but like when I was working on Yu Hakusho, when I was working on Fruits Basket, or when I was working on the original Dragon Ball and stuff like that, like those, we were just working on them. Like we didn't think like we would ever be sitting in a massive room full of people talking about it or celebrating it together. So it's like, we have memories from those times, but like it's nice to be able to do these shows and kind of these updated versions of them, because you get to kind of go and experience what it was like, and then you know going in how important it is to people and how cool it is, and you remember the experiences more than you ever did back then. People go like, "What was it like to play Yame?" And I go, "I don't remember." But now we get a chance to actually kind of dive back into that character again and play it again, and just the kind of the tease that we got on that small bit that we did a little while ago, that was really fun.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of those shows that are so super close, and I mean, my memories. I mean, I'm jumping the gun here, I'm sure, but I mean, I've got memories of driving around with this guy, talking about the subtext behind scenes, and why does this character make this decision, and why do you think this one makes that decision? I mean, all the shows we were diving into the minutia of why and what for.
It's because Justin and I were colleagues together. We both were directors, and for a time Justin was actually working in the same room that I was working in. And so we were like best friends. We would go to work, and then we'd go back to my apartment, which was closest to work because his was farther away. And we'd just play The Sims and talk about Yu Hakusho.
Amazing. So I want to jump into the first question as we start the Q&A. But Funimation acquired Yu Hakusho back in 2001. It originally aired in Japan though from '92 to '95. Did you know about this title at all before Funimation acquired it?
No, I had begun to hear about it because we were looking to acquire it. So that's when I started researching it and looking at it. Chris at this time was the owner of Dragon Ball Z, and I was honestly, I was looking for something that maybe I could get to be the owner of, and so luckily,
you owned it, bro. You were so good in that show, and I learned from the best. Justin is, and he didn't learn this from me, but Justin is literally one of the biggest fanboys of things in general. Like, I guarantee you he could have a Yu Hakusho museum someday of all of the collectibles and stuff that he used to like acquire back in those days. And that's anything that this guy likes. Like if he likes a band, he can't just go, "Oh, I like that song." He's got to like research the band, buy every single album, buy every single vinyl, buy every single poster, everything rare. This is the guy. And when he was working on that small bit, that last little OVA film that we did, he was literally pulling in bit parts of the cast of people that we hadn't even heard from in like 15 years. He was like, "I think it was my mother's like secretary at her office who did this bit part of this lady who was walking across the street," and he would track them all down, man. He's like,
I do like the original voices. We grow up with them. You don't want those things to change, right?
So what's the story behind like how you both got involved with the actual dub production? It's like,
well, so the way this started is that our producer at the time, there was, if I'm remembering correctly, there was actually an online thing where the internet was not new at that time, but it was certainly not as well used as it is now. But we had all done different, there were a bunch of like 2 or 3 different choices per character, and they were actually put up online for people to get to kind of really make a vote. I don't know that anything was cast based off of that, but I thought that was an interesting piece of it. But no, we got brought in at auditions. That's really where it was. I was going to be the director of it, but we couldn't find a Yusuke. We were pretty solid on Kuwabara. We knew who that was going to be.
"You flatter."
Well, but same with Chuck, same with John, and so Yusuke was an unknown, and Barry took me out of the casting. I wasn't able to cast anymore. He put me in the booth and had an audition, and then he came to me and said, "We'd like you to be the lead in show, and had to act all cool, and be like, oh, thanks, I appreciate it, that responsibility. I will take that very seriously. And then got home and ran around the block like 8 times.
And you're like, you finally got your show.
I was so super stoked. And I had already fallen in love with this show. I had watched 112 episodes over a weekend. Hey, we wouldn't have known Blue Ogre was George, right? You don't find that out until 111, so.
Spoiler alert.
You had to watch them on VHS tapes like you guys did too.
VHS.
But yeah, I mean, when we were working on this, I think Chris was still working at the end of Dragon Ball Z at the time.
Had we started Blue Gender?
Yes, I believe that.
I think we'd just started working on Blue Gender too, which was that's another classic one back from that kind of Funimation era too.
So yeah, that's kind of how that rolled.
Amazing. So I want to know, like, as a person who's not only voiced Yusuke, like, how does it go when you direct yourself?
It's very abusive. Again, and not to flatter too much, but I learned how to do that by watching how Chris worked as Vegeta, Piccolo, and how Chris worked as Dragon Ball Z. So I was watching a guy who was being harsh on himself and listening to his lines, doing a playback, listening to it. Let me grab that one more time. And so knowing kind of where was that moment, then you kind of go, that's good. If I try to work at it anymore, I'm going to make it worse. So kind of learning some of those ropes. That's how that worked.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Do you find yourself today actually being more harsh on yourself than you were back then, or did you find like back when you were working on Yu Yu or back when you were working on Dragon Ball, you felt like you were harsh back then?
I think I'm more harsh on myself now, even more so than back then, because back then, if you wanted to do another take, because of the weird, archaic machinery that we were working on back then, it could mean like, all right, we gotta let the tape rewind for like 5 minutes or something like that. So it was a very important decision as to whether you were gonna do another take or not. Now, with the technology we work on now, I'm like, no, another, no, let me do it one more time, let me do it 10 more times. Like, I'm pretty picky.
Directing yourself is a real guaranteed way to have 17, 18 takes on something.
That's a lot. I'm sure
Yeah.
eventually you'll start dreaming just like that, just talking to yourself all day.
Another difference now, and I mentioned this in my panel with Sean earlier today, it's still, it was still kind of in its infancy. And so we didn't have state-of-the-art equipment that we worked on. We worked on pretty old gear and stuff like that.
Made it work.
Yeah, you guys had whisper boxes at all back then?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think the one that we recorded Yu Hakusho in now it still exists. It's no longer put together. But it's leaned up against a wall.
It was hot. It was unair conditioned.
Yes.
Like, especially because it was a bank building, and anyone who works in a corporate office knows that we had to work a lot of late hours, and anytime it would go past like 5 o'clock, the air conditioning went off, and so there was no air conditioning anywhere in the building after that. So
That is true.
Wow, you guys are like really sweating it out during the dark tournament.
Yes.
Wow, that's incredible. So like you had touched earlier, Chris, on this, but like knowing that the dub production is much faster now. Obviously, Funimation has been doing a lot of simul dubs and turning those around in 2 to 4 weeks, which is incredible because we used to wait years upon years to get dubs. So like,
They're mainly at 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yes.
Justin's the head of production, so
Yes.
That's an important distinction.
he has to basically answer that
Yes,
question
that is
5
true.
times.
Very, very true. But yeah, like when you guys were on Yu Yu Hakusho or Dragon Ball, like what steps did you have to take in terms of like knowing what was coming in terms of the story and plot? Because I think back then, obviously, all of those episodes had aired, and so like you said, you had binge watched 112 episodes. But like, how did you actually understand it? Because I'm sure it was in Japanese.
Sure, but they had, what was it? It was the one where Kurama's referred to as Hiei and Hiei's referred to as Kurama. Anybody else seen any of those? Yeah, right? And you have to go way back and you'll see those. No, there was a decent translation that allowed you to understand what the story was, for sure. So, but the biggest difference is that you'd work on 6 to sometimes 10 episodes at a time. So when Chris would come in to record Kuwabara, we'd actually be able to get through a whole story arc in one session. And so there's positives to that, but then the negatives to that are or also that you kind of, you book a 6-hour session, and by the time you get to the end of hour 4, you're pretty tired, and you've yelled a lot for that amount of time. So sometimes that can come out in performance, but I think sometimes trying to attack that much material all at once, it's a lot to keep in your head, because you're moving through a lot of storylines when it comes to that kind of thing.
As a producer, it's great, because you can have one actor that has a smaller role do a bunch of roles, do a bunch of episodes. But as an actor, I love coming in for simuldubs. Like, I love coming in for them because you get to see the director every single week. Even if it's just like for a few lines, you still get to see the director, and you feel like you're part of a current production. Like if you're working on, Walking Dead or something like that, you feel like you're working on something that's being like constantly happening. And I like the spirit of that more than just like the grind of like, well, we've got another 15 minutes, let's sort of get into the next episode. Like, if you finish early with the director, you just kind of get to chat or talk about the show.
Yeah, and the other thing also is it makes the dub, I feel, a little bit more relevant. Something like Yu Hakusho, granted in 2001 or February of 2002, people started getting to watch it on television. But that's 8-9 years after it originally came out in Japan.
Right.
So having something that's printed out in English and it's out there either streaming or on broadcast somewhere a day after or 2 weeks even after it airs in Japan really makes it A, feel like it's a true international release, and then B, it does cause that dub element of it to be a little closer to its parent, as it were.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you very much for that. Was there anything that set Yu Hakusho apart from other series that you guys have worked on over the time? Could be story, could be, arcs, themes.
This is where we just say a lot of glowing things about Yu Hakusho. No, I think there's tons of things that set this apart. I also think that Yu Hakusho ended up being, as well as Dragon Ball Z, an inspiration for a lot of the other animes that we've seen come out over the last 20 years. And I also, I think that we, as at least employees of Funimation, learned a lot from doing those dubs, and Gender, and Kitty Grade, and Fruits Basket, other shows as well, Desert Punk, that we kind of learned a new methodology when it came to dubbing. Even with Dragon Ball Z, as we were able to kind of get farther and farther away from the previous cast's version of the episodes, we kind of found our own independence in working on it. And so I think one of the things that set Yu Hakusho apart from so many other titles is that it's really not just a show that's encapsulated to itself, but it's also kind of an interesting history lesson of dubs in America and kind of how that has come about, and then also just as the growth of Funimation and how we've kind of creatively come into our own.
Yeah.
I think the thing that was neat about Yu Hakusho is I think a lot of people found that show. And I think like everybody who was watching that show at the time thought they were the only people that were watching that show. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, you felt like it was like your underground thing. Like nobody else is watching this show. And it's because it wasn't the traditional. It wasn't a traditional type of show. It wasn't a sci-fi anime. It wasn't necessarily a Dragon Ball anime either. It had it had a lot of tournament stuff in it, but we recently did a commentary track where we watched over one of the episodes, and it's been a long time, honestly, since I've watched a lot of Yu Hakusho, and I was surprised how well it kind of holds up, because the music, while it does sound dated, it still sounds really cool, and it's haunting, and it's like, it wasn't very clean soundtrack either. There was a lot of hiss in that soundtrack.
Oh, it is. It's very analog.
It was, yeah, very much so. So I think the thing that makes Yu Hakusho kind of neat, it was kind of like if you were cool enough to watch something else besides Dragon Ball back in those days, to go like, nah, this is my show. This is my show.
I'm totally guilty of that. That's why Yu Hakusho is my favorite from my childhood. I thought Yu Hakusho was in its own league. But of course everyone's like, oh, I watch Dragon Ball, I'm like, but do you watch Yu Hakusho? Or you don't wait till 8 o'clock, dude. It's just literally half an hour later. Come on, man. You go watch it, dude.
Season 4.
Yeah, exactly. Is there a favorite arc that you guys have?
My favorite arc has been the Chapter Black arc. So I like the way though that each arc altered the animation slightly. I like that each arc kind of felt like it was, I don't know, like the show itself was developing. But I like that one the most. Robert McCollum, working with him. I mean, it's hard to say because it's not like working with him anymore. He's awesome as a Totoro. You know, he's incredible. But I like the different personalities. I like that Robert and I got to kind of define all of those personality types and work out, you know, they were. Your story arc in the third season is fantastic. And then all of the new actors that we got to bring in, Justin Pate, Monica Rial, there was just, and then Genkai, get to play video games. That's one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's been, for me, working on that show was like, I didn't understand it as well clearly as Justin did, because when you're the director, you understand absolutely everything. So. I think one of my favorite arcs is when I got to be Justin's daddy. Because a lesser known fact, I also play Ryzen as well. I played...
Kuwabara wasn't in season 4, so...
Why not? Why not? Yeah, I really dug everything involving like Yukina and Aikichi and like this whole weird romance thing he was happening towards the end, because it's something you wanted for him so badly. It was like such a fun thing, and then of course it had to be Hiei's sister as well. That was awkward. No thank you, please. I have a sword. I was told about you. Stand up, stand up. Look at this cosplay. Can you all see him? In fact, come up on the stage for just a second. Dude, Justin, you were right. We're backstage and Justin's like, there is the best Kuwabara cosplayer out there. Look at him go!
Just real hair.
Yeah, that's some darn good hair you got there, buddy.
It's very aggressive hair. I can't. Go.
It's haunted.
It's terrible. I swear to God, I can't.
Well, it's nice to meet you. What's your name?
Brian Hawkins.
Brian, give everyone. Man, the inscription on the back is perfect. It's so good.
It's incredible.
Did you actually stitch that yourself?
Anybody cosplay as older brother Togoro? We could get the fight going on right now. Oh, okay. Lucky this time.
Lesser known fact, guys, is you know that older brother Toguro, played by Damian Clark, is also the voice of Handsome Jack in Borderlands. Yeah, just fun fact for you there.
That's amazing. True. So as we kind of reminisce more about Yu Hakusho, especially Kuwabara, and it's just, yeah, there's amazing moments from, you know, any of the arcs that we have, but I think one of the best parts about Kuwabara in that chapter Black Saga is just, there's that really intense moment for him, and so I'd like to have the lights down, and then also I'm going to play this clip.
Oh, yes. This is, you guys don't do this enough, especially in